Welcome once again to another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. I'm your host, Jose Palomino, and our guest today is Susan MacConnel. And Susan is a preeminent expert in how to take advantage of LinkedIn and other platforms to grow your sales. So without further ado, let's welcome Susan MacConnel. And welcome to the Revenue Throughput Podcast, Susan MacConnel.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Susan, why don't we start with just to provide some context, like high level, what do you do and who do you typically work with?
Yeah, absolutely. I teach and train what I call socially timid or awkward or intimidated people how to generate meetings on LinkedIn.
Wow, that's such a specific. And what's interesting about that niching that you just described, and I'm fascinated by it, you're niching on a psychology, not necessarily an industry. It's a certain kind of
Right,
person who feels a certain kind of way. Wow.
right.
So what a kind of that person, let's say that person's listening right now and saying, yeah, that's kind of me right now. I'm not sure
Mhm.
about all this. I know I got to be in it, but I'm not sure how to do it or if I'm doing it right. What are some of the biggest challenges that ideal client typically experiences that when you hear about it, you go, I think I can help this person?
Yeah, it's like going to a network meeting. It's that intimidation of walking into someone's message box and feeling as though you're being pushy. And then learning how to do it the right way so that you are not pushy. So it's a fine line of learning how to, what I say, use emotional intelligence and psychographics to actually develop a real relationship. And a lot of people do not know how to do that. And when you get on LinkedIn and you see all of the spammy, awful messages that a lot of people are sending, and that happens in person as well, if you really think about that.
Yeah.
Um, it's a way to learn how to develop a real relationship. And there's so many people that are, like I said, they only have, maybe some have 200 to like 500 connections, and they've never really used it. And now all of a sudden we know that you have got to find other ways or make it at least a part of your process. And yeah, there's a lot of people on there with a lot of noise, and you can do it and not be one of them, is what I'm are the people that really I attract.
So that's interesting. So, for example, everybody who's on LinkedIn has been on the receiving end of one of those messages. Like, especially it starts off, we've looked at your site and you're fantastic, which is why we know you're a perfect candidate for XYZ cereal or Magic Box, whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
So that person who's listening now saying, yeah, but Susan, you're hitting the nail on the head. I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be seen that way.
Hmm.
So what do you tell that person is the kind of time or to transform? Is this going to be a major lift or they just have to make a couple of adjustments? Is it mindset? What do you have to start with?
Wow, I think it's a combination. I think what I want people to understand is that it's your time, and you can put a time limit on how much time you spend on LinkedIn. I think some people spend a ton of time in the feed, like scrolling around, and don't waste time. The way I teach it is I teach it from your profile to getting that message, and it's in that message box. And it's about serving others. If you think about it, put yourself in the shoes of the person or the problem that you solve. And if you relate to that person in that way, you'll do it the right way. It's about asking questions, it's about finding out about them. It's not about throwing up on them. I do this and I do this and I can get you this, because how do you know that until you actually meet them? And if you don't meet with them, how are you ever going to tell them what you do? Because they're going to immediately turn off as soon as they see, I can get you 30 leads a month. Well, how do I know that? I don't know your personality. I don't know your style. And I don't know where I have to take you from to get you there. And it's like I said, it's about understanding the person that's on the other side of the profile.
Well, you alluded to something just a minute ago too, which is the issue of time. So our audience mostly on this podcast would be owner operators of a B2B business. So they're
Mhm.
running a 5 million, 10 million, $20 million operation. It's not a Fortune 500, but it's a lot of stuff going on. Can't I just outsource this to an agency to pretend to be me and do it for me? Do I actually have to be in LinkedIn myself?
Well, yes, you can outsource it. But herein lies the problem, is that someone else is being you. And so if you ever have to take over that conversation, it might be very awkward. And automation is automation, and a lot of people see it, and mistakes are made, and you can't get personal, and you really can't ask good questions when you have someone outsourcing it. So my tip for sourcing is, if you're going to outsource it, just outsource the connection message and take it over from there. And really, you can almost do that yourself, because no one wants to send out 100 connection requests a day and have to manage that. You can do it in a half an hour a day once you get used to it. And then it's really like developing a relationship. And LinkedIn is cracking down on automation as well, by the way.
They don't want to see that happen, right?
No,
Wow.
they're starting to shut people down that are sending 100 connection requests a day. They're starting to not allow it.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. In the old days, they would let you like basically upload your entire email list, and they would send out like 500 connections. So I guess we're on a different day now. So just from that point of view, but you also hit on this half hour a day idea, and I just want to hang on to that a little bit because I am visualizing a very busy business owner managing so much and saying half hour a day. Can you really get a meaningful result? Or maybe let me stretch the example a little bit. I have a couple of sales reps who work for me. Can I insist that they spend half an hour a day on LinkedIn, and will they see results for doing so?
Yes, you can. I would say in the beginning, probably not, because there's a learning curve to it. But if you're very, like if you put on your calendar, I'm going to do 15 minutes of connection requests and maybe 15 or 20 minutes of answering direct messages, then yeah, you can do it. You don't sit there and go, to town and try to go crazy. It's like, I'm going to send 10 or 15 a day of connection requests. I'm going to answer 12 or 15 direct messages. And if that's the kind of correlation of what you're doing, and you're doing it with emotional intelligence and using psychographics, you can.
So let's expand that a little bit. So emotional intelligence is the kind of thing that most people think they understand what it means, and usually the person who's most sure about it doesn't have it, right? So it's kind of interesting. Sorry, that's just my experience. But you also mentioned psychographics. So how could you just expand on that a little bit, because that may sound a little heavy at first. Somebody thinking, well, it's enough. I got to do 30 minutes and these connection requests and then these replies, and I got to be emotionally intelligent and I have to understand psychology too.
And you
I
really don't.
suspect there's something a little bit more straightforward in that gets you there. So could you just expand on that a little bit?
Buzzwords. It's really, if you think about it, it's buzzwords, and it's really, it's emotional intelligence, on the for the other person and understanding them. It's really just looking at their profile, and being able to ask great questions. Like,
Hmm,
you just started a company. Like, it's about them. It's not really your emotional intelligence. It's about their emotional intelligence.
I
And
see.
if you're asking them questions about them, they're going to answer you. It's about saying, you just started a company. What led you to do that? You've been in the real estate industry and you just changed professions. What led you to do that? And if you ask great questions, not everybody's going to answer you, because that's life, but
Right.
you're going to be like, someone's going to stop and say, wow, I mean, I've gotten paragraphs back from people. I mean, like I said, it's just a mindset shift. And it's, I mean, emotional intelligence is really just relating, if you think about this.
Well, if anybody's ever gone into a store, doesn't matter, mattress store, car dealer, whatever, and the salesperson doesn't ask you anything about what you're looking for, what you're interested in, they immediately point to, this is on sale. This is a great bed. And I'm saying, I'm not buying a bed. I'm here to buy a duvet cover or something. Uh, just not asking. So what's interesting about that, it seems like you're saying through LinkedIn, you can actually establish some real dialogue, some genuine human connection.
Yeah. If you think about it, you're taking it from trying to talk to too many people to bringing it down to core. I mean, you know your target, so you start going after your target, and then you can't talk to 100 people, nor would you ever at a networking event either. So if you just kind of treat it like you're going to a networking event, and there's like 10 or 12 people that you actually end up, going further with, then it can be done successfully. But I love the idea of the retail. One of my coaches uses that. And it's like, you don't, when you walk into a retail store and someone says, can I help you? You're almost like, whoa. And you don't walk into your LinkedIn, and, or if you think about it, using emotional intelligence, you walk into that retail store and they say, um, thanks for coming. I know you're looking around. If there's anything that you would like to look at further, just let me know. Um, we do have some great specials, but feel free just to look around and let me know. It's like dropping the walls. You raise the walls. Can I help you? Like that you think you're being jumped on, and that can happen in LinkedIn as well.
So it's interesting, Susan. It seems that we sometimes read things, see things that suggest like social media is something else, but it's still humans communicating with humans. And it also seems like as human beings, we kind of sense when we're being played or run through a system. It doesn't feel genuine. It's easy to ignore, right? So, and yet it's very popular. So explain that. Why are people, very smart people, doing things that don't seem like the smart best habits to do?
I really think they think it's going to take too much time thing, or they think that they have to talk to 300 people to get one person to meet with them. And if you really break it down to an actual relationship, you really don't have to do that. If you are targeting the right people and asking the right questions, they will relate with you. But if you're throwing massive amounts of content out there or throwing it all, talking to 100 people, you cannot be emotionally intelligent with them, or because you're trying to be general as opposed to being specific.
Okay. So what about the person that says, you know, let's say I engage in that kind of relational connection, and now I have a lot of content, and I just want to have this ongoing dialogue. When is it appropriate to pivot to say, hey, by the way, I am in business to be in business, and I do something that might be interesting to you?
Mhm.
Is it like is there like a rule, like the fifth date rule, or is
Uh,
it just something you feel out? I'm just curious about that.
yeah, I mean, obviously, in a relationship, you do feel it out. But what I typically will teach is that there's, the connection request, there's the thank you and asking a great question, and then they answer you back. And it's really based on that question where you go with it. Um, I've had people that I've just been going back and forth with, but I do want to talk with them. So I won't tend to spend a ton of time. But if you're finding out about their business, in my case, I want to know, I'll eventually ask them, how do you find your leads? And I'm not asking like, do you find leads on LinkedIn? I'm asking them, how do you find them? And they may tell you it's about like asking great questions. And that's it's a funny thing. Somewhere between the third and fourth message, you don't want to spend 10 messages with somebody, but
Right.
you can kind of feel out by what they say.
Okay. Now, you mentioned before, and I've seen some of the stuff on your site talking about like profiles, right? So clearly, I've been on people's profiles, and I say, oh my goodness, they got married 20 years ago, and they're putting that wedding picture up as their LinkedIn profile picture. So, what other kind of mistakes do you see people make on LinkedIn that you go, oh, this could be so much better with just a little bit of attention here?
Yeah, let's go to the profile. Everybody sets their profile up like an extended version of their resume.
Mm-hmm.
You have 30 seconds for someone to say, I'm going to go further. So when you have, your profile picture needs to be professional. It needs to be a good picture. You need to have a banner, which is really not um, your logo or some pretty, it can be, but it's a function of you. Like if, let's just say you're a business consultant or you do speaking, there should be a picture of you in action doing what you're doing.
Gotcha.
Because it's making you an authority. And they're like, oh, he does a lot of speaking and he does a lot of speaking to crowds or now on Zoom. I have on mine, I have like 2 or 3 Zoom uh, events that I've put on and I've, made a nice banner out of that. And then under your name is your, what you call your tagline. And your tagline speaks to the problem that you solve. It's not about, I am this and I have this many degrees and I am the president, CEO, author. Do I care about that? No. I care about what you're going to be able to solve for me. And that should be what your tagline is about.
So somebody who, let's say, a professional service does the best compliance audits for something, It would say making your compliance audit headaches go away. I'm using it as a not a great example, but like really talking to a direct benefit. That would be the tagline.
Making small business compliance headaches go away.
More
Like
specific. Yeah,
who do you serve?
gotcha.
Yeah, if you go right to your target and what you solve.
That's excellent. And that would
Consultants. I don't know if yeah.
so it wouldn't be
So
CEO, it wouldn't be business consultant, it wouldn't be professor, author. It'd be what you do. Why and then your I guess your profile details describe the bona fide nature of what you are.
well, so when you get so in your um where you know your company name and your title and that's where all that stuff is.
Right.
That's if I want to know how many years you've been in business, what your company website is and what your company does, I can look there. But when I get to your about section, I still want to know what problem you're going to solve for me. And I
Okay.
still want you to tell me that you're an authority. So it's becoming an authority. Again, the problem, agitate that problem, and then at the bottom of your about statement, how you solve it. It's not, I have 14 degrees from
Hmm.
wherever and I do this, this, and this. It's still continuing that problem. And you said what was compliance?
Just came to mind, not because I
Yes.
do compliance.
Are you worried? Are you worried you will be audited and be shut down? Or
Okay.
have you been audited and been shut down? I've noticed a trend that this is happening more. And so if I was reading this, I'm like, yeah, that's me. That's me.
That's good. That's excellent, Susan. I mean, just and what I love about this is, and for our listeners, this is not. It's free. You have a LinkedIn account. You can. I mean, as far as making these changes, obviously somebody could contact you for help because wordsmithing is
Absolutely.
art, and not everybody's particularly great at it. But it's not a heavy process. It's just saying make your profile more impactful. I mean, if we were to say it that way.
Remember, it's an intention to serve. It's about, when I say emotional intelligence, it's about getting them to emotionally look at your profile and say, oh my goodness, I really need to work with them, or I need to call, I need to have a meeting.
Wow. Well, I know this is a hot topic, the whole LinkedIn world, especially as we all went indoors. Now we're going out now, but things are going to be different. And it's a way to connect with a large audience or a larger audience that gives you leverage, all of those things. But
Mhm.
there's still some nuance in how you do it because I could easily see somebody saying, I'll spend an hour a day. But if you do it wrong, you're wasting your time.
Mhm.
So we want to definitely get it the right way. Well, Susan, thank you for sharing just some principles of getting it right. If somebody listening to this podcast now wanted to get a hold of you or learn more about what you do, where should they go?
I would say send them all to LinkedIn. It's Susan McConnell on LinkedIn, MacConnell. I'm very easy to find and happy to answer any questions. And I really thank you so much for this time. And I
No,
hope,
fan.
and also we hope we help someone and solve their problems, right?
I'm sure we did. I'm sure we did. Susan, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for having me.